Hi, good evening, everyone. Greetings from Malaysia. Yeah, my name is Seelan. These are my contact details. Now, what I'm doing is to look at the AAA paper. I've been teaching on the audit paper for more than 35 years, as well as SBL since it started, its inception, right? But the AAA paper is of great interest to me because it's got the lowest pass rate. I've taught it in five different countries actually. And the new paper, since it became AAA, the whole focus of the paper has changed to a very practical approach, right? Theoretical knowledge will not get you through this paper, right? And that is why I intend to make a series of maybe 5 to 6 um, lectures, which I will upload onto YouTube. Now, like my YouTube channel and you will get all the latest updates. But these are my contact details in case you need any further clarifications, right? It's a paper which has got never had more than 34% pass rate. Now, remember, this is at the tail end of ACCA, and having a 34% pass rate for those of you who have struggled through the other papers and got here, and only achieving 34% is simply not encouraging. It's not encouraging. And in my opinion, the main issue is not knowledge, it's definitely not intelligence. I mean, all of you had the intelligence to scramble through the rest of ACC. You are highly intelligent. It's basically your approach. Oh, yes, please take it from me. Having thought on this paper for so long, it's your approach, how you think, and how you write. It's your approach to this paper. Now, what we're going to do today in this recording is look at the basically look at the important areas, meaning I will go through and do an overview of the key areas, and then look at the new thing, which was new 3 sittings ago, the professional marks briefly, right? Now, the paper in the AAA, well, it started off earlier. You've got two section A, section B. The first one is, of course, 10 marks, 50 marks. And mind you, the key is, of course, it should have become easier, should have, like the keyword is should have, but you've got 10 professional marks, which means it's not knowledge based, and your knowledge based mark has come down to 40. Now, prior to this professional marks coming in, the technical marks was 46 and only 4 marks for professional marks. Now they've increased the professional mark and your technical marks is 40 marks, which means it should have become easier, should have, but it's not indicated by the pass rates, right? Requirement has always required you to produce a briefing note to the audit engagement partner at the planning stage of the engagement, right? And therefore, the question will always be planning related, right? Now, but covering a wide range of areas. Now, section B, 2 questions of 25 marks each. Generally, the first one, question 2 or scenario 1 will be completion question. And of course, audit report normally comes in as part of the completion question. And of course, other assignment comes in as the second scenario. But ladies and gentlemen, there has been one particular instance where they gave us a full 25 mark on reports, right, which I will talk to you briefly about in a short while, right? And they totally skipped other assignments, right? So you must be careful about this, right? Question scenario 1 and scenario 2, there may be slight changes, right? Now, the main focus, what you should focus on in your exams, ladies and gentlemen, right? And mind you, if you're going for the September exams, right? If you're going for the September exam, you've got very little time and you need to start focusing on, firstly, ethics. Now, you're going to get something like 10, 12 marks on ethics. Oh, yes. And the focus has been mainly on ISBA code, where I will try to make another recording on that ISBA code on independence. And mind you, your examiners are experts at twisting questions in this area, right? The ISBA code. It could be objectivity, confidentiality, they could go on any one of them. Now, another area that keeps coming out time and again, and which is of great importance in today's practice scenario, is quality. Now, from ISQC, right, International Standard of Quality Control, they've moved on to ISQM, Quality Management, right? So, if you are using old past year question, if you have managed to download some of them, some of you may have sat for this paper for quite a while. Now, don't throw them away. It's just that wherever you have got ISQC, you got to convert it to ISQM, and I hope to do a full 30-minute lecture on that. And my plan is, of course, nothing more than 20 to 30 minutes in my recording, right? Nothing more than that. It's going to be a strain on you to keep listening to someone for 3 hours, right? Now, questions normally will focus on acceptance of a new client or additional assignment from an existing client. So, and the belief of the profession is today, if you take in good clients, your quality would be normally be better, right? And of course, conduct of the client, if the client threatens you or something like that, or even audit staff, your staff's, what shall I say, independence, or your staff's objectivity, your confidentiality and things like that, right? Conduct of the audit, where they talk to you about the rotation of partners. You need to be able to be clear about whether it's a listed, unlisted, a lot of small things which get twisted and turned here, right? But a definite area. Now, ethics may be part of question one, scenario one, case study one. Sorry, I'm still using old language. It's actually case study. It normally is there in the case study. Plus, you could get it in also scenario two, or even scenario one for that matter, right? It could come in anywhere, right? And they are going to throw ethics all over, right? I have seen that it has come as much as 12 marks, ladies and gentlemen, 12 marks that you can easily pick up, right? Now, then you've got case study question. Let me put this on the next page. Right? Case study questions will always be on planning and risk and will feature prominently, right? It can go up to 26 marks, anything between 20 to 26 marks, right? Sorry, it will be a 50-mark question, but your audit risk, right? Your audit risk, right? Audit risk or risk of material misstatement and audit procedure. Case studies will always have something on audit procedure, 6 to 12 marks, mind you, right? It can be 6 to 12 marks. And your audit risk or risk itself, 20 to 26 marks, 18 to 26 marks, right? That's how the lowest marks allocation has been 18 so far, right? Now, of course, very quickly, audit risk talks about risk of material misstatement and detection risk, right? Right. So you've got two risks to look at. Now, indication of detection risk as follows. And mind you, new client, potential listing, raising funds through a loan, going concern. Now, these are things that has come out again and again, which is why when you look at past year question, don't memorize the answers. Look for the theme. Look for the theme in those questions, right? Questions are normally to be linked to accounting standards, right? Risk of material misstatement will most likely be linked to accounting standards, which is why when you look at your accounting standards, as what we will talk about, what I put in this short set of notes is that you need to be very clear in looking, and this is where the distinction comes between SBR and AAA. I know students keep telling me, oh, when you do SBR, AAA should be easier. Yes, it's easier, but you must understand something. The way you look at the standards in SBR is how you apply the standards to a scenario. In AAA, you need to look at it in terms of what are the potential risk areas related to the standards. Normally, anything which is subjective, right? Where accuracy, and you need to be able to link and it would be a very critical, or rather, it would be very useful for you if you are able to link accounting standards to the assertions. Oh, yes, if you can. It may be a challenge, too short a time for September, but nevertheless, always look at accounting standards in terms of audit risk, audit procedures. And if you can do that, you're fine. You're going to pass this paper. Now, of course, business risk comes out quite often. Questions should be linked to going concern, profitability, efficiency in operation, and cash flow, right? Um, and one of the things you must always remember is that, sorry, people, ensure that you're able to distinguish between, right? And mind you, it appears every 5 or 6 sitting ones. They give you a business risk, 6 marks, risk of material misstatement, 18 marks. Right? I mean, that's a general allocation, not always the case. And ladies and gentlemen, we all know that business risk is 2 marks each, risk of material misstatement is 3 marks each. And mind you, when you do your questions, look at the mark allocations. Right? It'll give you a good indication as to how many risks you need to identify. Oh, yes, that's one of the biggest challenges, right? And I'll tell you, if you can do this question on risk quite well, where you walk out with about 20 marks out of 26, you're on your way to pass the exam. Now, with audit reports, right, and it's going to be a guaranteed area, but don't get carried away with audit risk. Why? Because remember, that is one, sorry, people. Oh, right. Now, we were talking about this business risk. You need to always ensure that you are able to, sorry, people. Okay, I need to stop. Yes, sorry again. Now, business risk would be linked to this, and you need to ensure you are able to distinguish between business risk and risk of material misstatement. As I just said earlier, right, to stress the point, the more difficult questions, which appears every 3, 4 sitting ones, is where the examiner gives you first part 4 to 6 mark business risk, second part risk of material misstatement. And mind you, materiality plays a heavy role. Oh yeah, they play a very heavy role in initial materiality assessment, and they expect you to use figures. And mind you, I hope to do one full lecture on handling this part, risk in an examination question, right? And it's going to be a big thing then, right? So you're talking about 25 marks, 25% of your paper, quarter your paper on this one area. So, in my opinion, you start with accounting standards, you start with business risk, you should be on your way to pass, and you don't have much time for the September exam, right? With the results coming out shortly. I believe I'm doing this recording on Sunday. Results is out tomorrow on Monday, which is why I'm rushing it out today. And I hope next week to come out with another recording as well. Now, reports. Now, I use the word reports rather than audit reports because um, your examiner has made it clear that he could always question you slightly differently, right? Now, 2 types of reports can be questioned. You can have your audit report and report to those charged with governance. Now, obviously, they could also ask you to write what are the key audit matters which should be included in the audit report. Oh, yeah, they could twist and turn it in different ways, but generally, the most common is the first one here, where you've got auditors respond to uncorrected misstatements. Now, generally appearing in the scenario 1, right? 5 to 6 marks. What would be your response if they refuse to correct the misstatement? And mind you, again, could be twisted quite a bit, whereby they talk to you about a misstatement, a series of multiple misstatement, a single misstatement, a misstatement which is not material, misstatements which are material. And mind you, they could give you multiple different, I mean, they could give you so many different types of scenario that if you are the kind who memorize some past year question, you're not going to get through. You need to understand, right, what the auditor's response should be, right? Linking it back to, of course, quality management, right? criticizing a draft audit report, quite common. Now, if you are asked to criticize a draft audit report, it would be 8 to 10 marks. Oh, yeah, right? So, uncorrected response misstatement, 5 to 6 marks. Draft audit report, 8 to 10 marks. Report to those charged with governance. Now, this was a killer some time ago. They gave you 15 marks. They gave us 15 marks for report to those charged with governance, but they did not want us to write a report. They just wanted to talk. They just wanted us to provide them with what would be the kind of issues would be included in a report to those charged with governance, right? And of course, they could ask us, which they have not yet asked us, what are the things you would put into a key audit matters in an audit report, right? They've been quite tricky with the audit report question. With the draft audit report question, very tricky. Again, memorizing will not get you through. Now, another big area, audit procedures, 6 to 12 marks in case study 1, audit evidence, a major part, up to 15 marks to 18 marks in your scenario 1, right? Always related to standard, is best studied in relation to assertions, right? Again, like I said, I will definitely make one, if not a series of 2 or 3 recording on this, right? And post it in my YouTube channel, right? So look at this, always related to accounting standards. And of course, you got your other engagement, which is, in my opinion, the easier part of the examination, right? Which is, by the time students reach this part, they are tired, right? So they tend not to do very well here, right? You could get due diligence, prospective financial information, going concern, forensic audits. Now, question would involve procedures on cash forecast, but ladies and gentlemen, ethics comes in here as well, quite heavy, right? Under other engagement, they generally bring us into ethics either in terms of the ISBA code with conflict of interest or objectivity or even acceptance of the engagement, right? So an overview, break your studies up into these major areas. Like I will mention again, ethics is the first one I would look at, right? Quite widely, because when I start doing other questions, ethics is going to be all over. Then I would look at my risk, right? I would look at planning and risk, which will feature which is definitely there, right? But of course, it will be tied in with your accounting standards. Reports, another major area, definite to be there in your exams. Audit procedures and evidence, which will be the biggest area. And mind you, this is where the main strategy that you need to look at very clearly would come in. It's the widest area of all, but wouldn't be more than 12 and 24, 25 marks. Or it wouldn't be more than that. But it features all over. And that's what makes this exam so difficult, where they are integrating knowledge, right? And of course, other engagement, which, ladies and gentlemen, which would be the smallest area that you need to look at, because you've got these 4 or 5 areas where you talk about cash forecast, audit procedures for cash forecast, matters to consider, and engagement, right? So that is where your main focus would be. Start allocating your time to study based on this. Now, the other main area I want to talk about today is, of course, your professional marks, right? Let me push it to the next page, and we would be fine there. Now, the first one in your professional marks will be communication, right? Now, maximum communication mark is limited to only 4 marks, and it will only appear in your case study, section A. You're not going to get any communication mark in section B and C. Sorry, in scenario 1 and 2. It's only going to be here, and it's going to be the easiest 4 marks you can pick up. Oh, yes. Now, format, headings and subheading, right? When we do a question on this, you will see the word memo written on top, and to, from, the whole works. You could look at any past year question, your BPP, your Kaplan revision kit, whichever you look at, you will see it there. Now, should be based on the requirement. Brief introduction explaining the content of the report. Now, they use the word brief introduction, ladies and gentlemen, right? You do not have to write very long introduction. Brief. In my opinion, I normally say, this briefing note is on, and I look at, if you've attended my classes before, I would look at the requirement and put it in, and that's the end of the matter, right? You need to move away. Remember, it's total 4 marks. You're not going to get more than, they're not going to give you more than a mark for introduction, and you can't spend 3 hours on that. It should look professional. Language should be appropriate, be clear and effective. We need to look at that when we look at case studies. Briefing note is addressing the audit engagement partner. You may assume he or she will understand basic of auditing. As such, it would be unnecessary to restate them, meaning you don't have to go and define what is audit risk and do any great clarification of basic stuff. Content of the report should be specific to the requirement. It must be focused, factual, and concise, meaning don't overwrite. That's what the examiner is saying, concise. Do not provide unnecessary detail. Require you to refer unnecessary detail. Don't write things which are not totally required. Remember, this is a professional documentation to someone who is your boss, right? So you do not go and give them backgrounds on things, right? So if you're going to talk about an analytical procedure, a preliminary analytical review, you don't have to go and say what a preliminary analytical review is. You merely have to state that, look, based on the preliminary analytical review, these are the audit risks. Bang. That's all you need to look at. May require to refer to only certain exhibits and not consider certain risks. Make sure you adhere to the instruction. Now, I can talk to you about this. Certain exhibits in terms of, in case studies, we have seen that when it comes to the ethics question, if it is something on the ISBA code, they will tell you, look at exhibit 5. But they don't want you to look at 1, 2, 3, 4. Only exhibit 5. Stick to that. Or it can say, do not consider risk of disclosures, right? So if it's nothing to do with disclosure, anything to do with disclosure standards like your EPS and all, you don't talk about it. You don't talk about it. So remember, if you want these 4 marks, you follow instructions and look at the headings, subheadings, and be factual. Full stop. All right. And mind you, only 4 marks. Right. Now, very nicely, they've given us analysis and evaluation. And this is quite critical because unlike your SBL paper, where they put analysis and evaluation as 2 different skills, your AAA examiners have very nicely put it together. All right. All 3 questions will have marks for analysis and evaluation. Analyze information, draw appropriate information, right? Meaning they're looking at you mentioning only appropriate information in your examination paper. I mean, in your answer script, right? So please remember, you're going to get analysis and evaluation question in all 3 scenarios, right? So you can see it here. We have given you some example. Assessment of financial reporting issues to the client, the ethical or legal or regulatory issues that and their impact on audit procedures, may be at the planning or completion or reporting stage of the audit. Need to ensure that any recommendation for further action are relevant to the point of the engagement, meaning, are you at the planning stage? Are you at the completion stage? Now, case study 1 and scenario 1, that is where the main thrust of your analysis is going to come. Remember, scenario 2 is most likely going to be on other assignment. So it will be slightly different, but nevertheless, you need to look at analysis. That any analysis or evaluation is contextual and must take into account situation in which the question in the organization in the question operates, right? Appropriate use of information, determine suitable calculation to support your evaluation, your analytical reviews. There was a time when they questioned on impairment reviews, right? It could take any form, right? And here I've given you, the examiners have explained it to you, right? Now, the evaluation is a balanced appraisal, right? So it is and this is where the evaluation part, the question may ask you, what further action, what further procedures, what further evidence you are required to undertake. You need to evaluate it based on the circumstances. Now, skepticism, something that is there all the time. There are only differences. They have given us, they've made us, given us skepticism, right? And told us that professional skepticism is something where you have a questioning mind, right? And mind you, introduction to spectrum of ISA 315, right? They gave us a whole list of it, right? And they spoke to us about auditor needs to exercise skepticism, review the evidence and information provided, consider whether it can be relied on. Is there corroborative evidence, right? Is the evidence reliable? Is it only from management, right? So you need to be able to look at the reliability of the evidence. Do you need to obtain more information to make a judgment? Is it merely something that management told us where we do not have supporting documentation from anyone else? Do you need to challenge the assumptions made, right? Whenever there is assumptions made, you need to challenge. And mind you, especially in scenario 2, right? When it's to do with these other assignments where most forecasts are based on assumptions, right? Judgments are based on assumptions, forecasts are made on assumption, estimates are made on assumption. You need to challenge them unless those assumptions are substantiated, right? Should you calculate questions, calculations and estimates, right? So they've told you this. Challenge the information given in the scenario when it's appropriate to do so, which means look at the source of the information, right? Not all information should be challenged, right? And that is why you look at quality of the evidence must be considered, right? If it's something that is corroborated by third party or by self-generated procedures, what is there to challenge further, right? So you need to, and this is where you need to look at your evaluation critically, right? As professional skepticism. And finally, we come to commercial acumen. Set commercially realistic scenarios ranging from private to public sector organization, non-profit organization, and regulated industry. Now, obviously, if your client is in a regulated industry, the audit risk would be low. And the reason is simple, because you have got the authorities and the regulators looking at the industry. So audit risk should be lower, right? Risk of material misstatement should be low. Now, obviously, listed companies are regulated by the stock exchange. So they are, in a way, regulated as well, right? And of course, the ISBA code requires you to have quality management, right? And of course, you need to have a quality reviewer, engagement quality reviewer. So those things, right, are things that you need to think about, right? So when you look at assessing businesses affecting the client at the audit planning stage, specific regulatory requirement or impact of competition on future business. So look at commercial acumen in a very serious manner, ladies and gentlemen. It will give you quite a lot of, it can give you, remember, 4 marks out of 20, right? Out of your 20 marks, 4 marks goes towards that. So what you're talking about is that the remaining professional marks will go towards, remaining professional marks is 16 marks going towards evaluation, professional skepticism, and also commercial acumen, right? But it's going to be spread over all 3 questions, right? So something that you need to look at and you need to be careful about, right? And remember, ignoring professional marks is not going to get you, you're going to have a greater challenge passing this paper. So, ladies and gentlemen, approach is what's critical in this paper. And I hope this first recording will set your mindset to how you should prepare for this paper, right? If you need further clarification on this first recording of mine, please contact me on this. I'm not conducting classes in any college in Malaysia or Uganda in the coming sitting. For the coming sitting, I propose to set up my own online course soon. But I'm starting off by using by doing free recordings for critical topics, which I hope which should be coming out in the next few weeks, right? So, ladies and gentlemen, if you have got any further clarification, do not hesitate to contact me. Thank you for your time. Start preparing. Results for the September intake, it's 16th of July. Results for the June exams are out on the 17th of July. For those going in for September, please remember there's still plenty of time if you focus on the correct topics in the correct manner. Thank you for your time, ladies and gentlemen, and start studying hard. Thank you.